The men's basketball team tips off the 2016-17 regular season on Friday by hosting Central Arkansas at 7 p.m. at the Kohl Center. Head coach Greg Gard is here. We'll have some opening comments, then take questions.
Need some comments? All right. Actually, we returned Saturday from our scrimmage against Northern Iowa, which I thought learned a lot of good things. I thought younger guys in particular really played well. Obviously, it's something that there's no media at those things, so that in terms of initial reporting, it's all what Patrick had sent out and tweeted out. But I thought in terms of watching a learning curve take place, how guys had grown and had taken a step since last Sunday with the Platteville game, that things were going in the right direction. And things that maybe 3 months, 6 months ago were not instinctual for certain individuals now are becoming more instinctual. I think that helps when you have 4 seniors like we do. That helps with the leadership. But really, it was happy with the way we shared the ball, the way we moved, played very unselfishly. And obviously it was good for us in terms of a Northern Iowa team that traditionally always is at the top of their league and usually playing in March. But we'll take that, break down the film here as soon as we get done with this press conference, and then start to prepare as we go through the week for Central Arkansas opening up on Friday night. But like I said, I was pleased with how we've grown since Sunday with the Platteville game, and hopefully we'll continue to get better because we have to. I mean, we've got definitely some stiff challenges ahead of us, but also we need to get better individually and collectively as a team. But was happy with what I saw on Saturday.
Greg, now that you've had your guys for, I guess, over a month of practice and have seen them against a couple other teams, do you feel like you have a pretty good feel for what you have?
Yeah, I think it became even more evident on Saturday. I think that's something I knew was just going to take time for, obviously with the decisions we have to make as a staff on who's going to be on the floor, how much, in what situation. That is starting to crystallize a little bit more every day. But I think going through this, and I didn't ever feel that we could force feed it and force it to happen in terms of who was going to step up and show that it would gradually happen naturally over time. And that's what I've seen take place here. Specifically Saturday, I thought it was very evident in terms of experience showed. And that was and even some younger players that, for example, Dimitri Trice, I've been impressed with him every day. I mean, he plays well beyond his freshman years in terms of he just acts and walks and talks like a point guard and runs a team like a point guard and just makes point guard plays. And I was very happy with what he showed on Saturday, but several other guys, I could go up and down the roster, but it's slowly starting to take form of who can be in those positions. And then, like I said, we'll even use these next few games. We'll probably always be trying to figure out who can help and who's ready and who's not quite ready now in November, but maybe by December or January will be. So that's the nice thing about having this type of depth, is that there's going to be developing options as we go through the season, and keep in mind it's a very long season.
Do you guys have to bring up the opener last year, or is that totally last year and you just forget about it?
Yeah, we haven't talked about a game at all. We've just consistently talked about trying to get better every day. Obviously, we went back to a little bit of Northern Iowa last year in the scrimmage, but they're a different team. I think we're a different team at this point in time too. I think a more mature team than we were a year ago. So they understand it starts for real on Friday, and just never waste any opportunities. We've talked about that a lot, and just make the most of every single day. 4 days of practice to prepare for Central Arkansas, and be ready to play as well as we can.
Greg, I know that Bo kind of left it up to he would tell them a freshman how much they would play, or a sophomore how much they would play, and then leave it up to them as to whether they wanted a red shirt or not. How do you handle that, and have you had those conversations with guys yet?
We haven't yet. We will this week, but we'll sit down and answer any questions they have. As you look at the roster, there's not many of them that have an opportunity to redshirt. They've either used it or it's not available to them. But those conversations will happen through the week. I don't think there's very many of them that are in that position that even have an option to redshirt, that aren't, viably in the top 10 or so. So we'll work through that as the week goes along. But I don't see it being a huge number, if any.
Greg, I don't know how most coaches around the country prepare for these close scrimmages. I thought it was interesting that you actually did scout team work with Northern Iowa. Can you explain that rationale? I mean, was it just a chance to, you're going to be doing it next Friday anyways? Was it just one more chance to get your team ready for that?
Yeah, I think anytime you can take them through the experience. I thought just the bus trip in itself, even though it was not an overnight, it was not a hotel or any set meals, just the bus trip, the preparation, the pregame taping, those type of things always help. Anytime you can expose them to another game day-like experience, I think it helps. And I think that with the preparation, a lot of our guys, those younger players hadn't been in that role of either over with me on that side or had heard a scouting report before, and we've tweaked a little bit of our format with it to fit the coach's personality and how they wanted to do it. But I think it was good for us to go through those reps. And I thought Saturday was very good. I mean, it's just really Coach Jacobson does a really good job there, and their program is very well established. And we took 4 segmented periods and worked on something different in each time. Each 2 16-minute sessions, a 12-minute session, and then another 16-minute session. And just were able to experience a lot, which I think that's the best thing you can come out of there with, some more experience that can help you as you go forward, and understand there's going to be mistakes made in those, and there's always going to be mistakes made. It's how quickly you learn from it and move on, and I thought we really as a whole did some really good things. That we showed some youth at times, but they really are. I'm seeing more and more of a consistency of grabbing the concepts of what we're trying to accomplish every day.
Obviously, there's good high expectations for this team. That's been confirmed by some of the polls that have come out recently. How are these guys handling that so far?
Every time we've talked about it, they've approached it as business as normal, and we haven't shied away from it. We understand, as I've said all along, and it's always been this way in this program, that the expectations on the outside will never supersede what's on the inside. And these guys are a very confident group, but they understand also. I think one thing that will help this group is what they went through last year and how they had to dig themselves out from a hole and mature and grow. And they understood or through the year understood how important this process and the everyday aspect is to it. And they've taken the same approach. They've practiced pretty well, other than maybe a blip here or there where they haven't been as consistent. But it helps when you have a mature group. I mean, you have 4 seniors leading the way. Your best coach teams are always your player coach teams, and this group has taken on a leadership and ownership of that locker room.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, can you draw on 2 years ago as well, when there were very high expectations, and you did have strong leaders on that team too?
Yeah, just to some extent. I think the one thing they can draw from that team is that specifically our seniors that were sophomores in that group, is that they approached the 14-15 season the same way they approached 13-14, and they didn't skip any steps in the process. They knew they were going to be pretty good. They knew expectations were high, but they knew they also couldn't get ahead of themselves. And if you start skipping steps in the process and don't take care of things in preparation and maturity and improvement in November, December, January, it's irrelevant what happens in March. So that group had a very mature approach to that process as well. I think this group's a little dynamically made up a little bit differently, and there's not a Kaminsky there in terms of that. And that group was such a special, it was almost a trifecta of terrific talent, terrific maturity, but also all of them from a basketball IQ standpoint understood what needed to be done. And that was talk about a player coach team. There was a lot of times we sat in the huddle and it was Jackson and Gosser and Kaminsky doing most of the talking in the huddle. So that's what experience can do for you. It grabs that ownership and that leadership role and really rolls with it.
Brandon.
Coach, story today about the launch of Guarding Against Cancer. Can you tell us a little bit about that initiative?
Yeah, one of the things that I've looked at, researched, thought about, talked to a lot of people about over the last several months, and that's Michelle's here today too. To kind of we've partnered together with the UW Carbone Center, UW Health, the UW Alumni and Foundation to create a initiative, as you mentioned, Guarding Against Cancer is what it's called. There was really two things I looked at in terms of where I was going to go with this whole cancer fundraising and how we can continue to help in the state. And two things that I looked at. Is there a way for us to keep all the funds at work right here in Wisconsin? And is there a way that we can also have a voice or have an advisory committee that can help us have a voice in terms of where to allocate funds? As I look back at this, Michelle and I were both born, raised, and have professionally matriculated right within the state, have never had to leave the state's borders. And this state, its people and its places have been phenomenal to us. And as we reflected back on our journey with my dad, and obviously coming through that, the things that we learned, some of them we didn't want to learn at the time, but we were forced to. This state is a special place. It's been great, like I mentioned, to me and my family. So how can we best help make it even better? How can we reach out across the state? And so by partnering with these three institutions and having the university behind it, all the events will be conducted right here in the state. And we'll obviously focus a lot on research and helping the Carbone Center, but also using our exhibition game every year. This year it was the Brain Cancer Awareness Game because of the anniversary of our father's passing and the ability to play Platteville with Jeff there. But going forward, it'll be a cancer awareness game. And this initiative will focus on all cancers across the board. There's over 100 different types of cancer, and we understand that, we're not the only one to go through it. We're not the first. We unfortunately won't be the last. And how can we continue to make a difference? So to be able to use this platform and to be able to keep everything at work right here in the state, I think that's something as I've talked to people and researched this and bounced different ideas off of a variety of people, from community leaders, institution leaders, donors, across the board. It's been really extremely well received. We have so many great resources, so many great people here at the University of Wisconsin and that support the university. And to have a place like the Carbone Center that's the state's only NCI certified comprehensive cancer center, to be able to help that. But also I wanted to make this border to border, from Hayward to Racine, from Egg Harbor to Hazel Green, across the state. How can we make an impact and help people that have to go through, the things that we went through? And fortunately, I was in a position where I could access resources and seek advice that was able to help get the best information for my dad. There's a lot of people out there that don't have that same avenue and that same access. And our goal with this is to help the state. And I think just it's up, as you mentioned, the website just went live. It's guardingagainstcancer.org, and it's just being unveiled in terms of the plans of it. But I think just with the partnership we have, how could we make a direct, tangible impact in this state? What was the best way to keep helping those here at home as much as possible? And this was the best combination of efforts that I could find, and I'm extremely proud and extremely excited I know Michelle and I are the same, what this can be, because it's, like I said, we both live that with our dad, or with my dad, and we want to be able to help other people in this state. So that's kind of, in a long-winded answer, that's the kind of the synopsis of that. More to come.
Coach, I know a lot of the talk in the offseason was about Nigel off the court. On the court, how has his game gotten better?
Well, I think, as Tom mentioned about leadership, I think that's one thing that's improved. I think that was something that he matured through last year during that transition. That how do I be a leader? Everybody can be a leader when things are going well. How do I lead when adversity strikes? And that's what both him and Bronson and Showalter, and to some extent Vito Brown, experienced last year. It wasn't easy. And I think that's one thing with Nigel that jumps out, is that he's become a better leader. And you have to lead in a lot of different ways. Not everybody, just like you have to coach in a lot of different ways to each individual and instruct and teach in different ways, you also have to lead in different ways. And I think that's where Nigel probably is, I've seen the most maturity. Obviously his game has improved. His ball handling's better. I think he's better defensively. But I think the leadership role, as he continues to immerse in that and grow in that, will be a huge piece for us.
Anything else for Coach? All right. Thanks, Greg.
All right, thank you.